Alrighty, good morning. Thank you all for being here and joining me in my July press briefing. Today is all about the city's budget. As your mayor, this is by way of reminder, our work is guided by three core values: transparency, being proactive, and being approachable. In that spirit, I am here to give you a candid look at the current state of our 2025 budget and to help frame the conversation about the financial road ahead. Today's update is more than just a discussion about numbers, it's about stewardship. Stewardship of public trust, stewardship of our shared resources, and stewardship of our vision that we hold together for a strong and flourishing Colorado Springs. You've likely heard some of the conversations surrounding the city's current budget realities. Like families and many businesses across the city, we are facing economic headwinds. And like every responsible household and business, we are tightening our belt to ensure that we are living within our means. We are a growing and resilient city, and we remain committed to making wise, data-informed decisions to preserve and sustain the essential services you rely on every day. But before I dive into the city's budget realities, I want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the broader economic factors that are shaping our financial outlook. Factor number one, consumer sentiment. Across the nation, consumer confidence has taken a sharp downturn. According to the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey, one of the most trusted measures of how Americans are feeling about the economy, we are seeing some of the lowest confidence since the survey began in 1946, as you can see on the graph. And now, why does this matter? Because nearly 2/3 of the U.S. economy is driven by consumer spending. And right now, we're seeing that many Americans are feeling uncertain about where the economy is headed. Confidence in inflation improving anytime soon is low, and when people feel unsure, they tend to hold back on their spending and focus on saving. And when spending slows down, cities feel it, especially cities like ours, in which 60% of our general fund comes from sales tax revenue, as you can see on the graph. That's why consumer confidence is not just a national issue, it's a local one as well. Number two, high interest rates. Interest rates remain high, and that is truly having a chilling effect on our economy. If you take a look at this graph, it shows that mortgage rates over the last 10 years, and as you can see, with rates this high, people are delaying major purchases. Businesses are hesitant to expand, and builders are putting projects on hold. And I've talked to a number of builders locally. Simply put, the cost of capital is too high. Here in Colorado Springs, we are feeling this impact. One clear example is a drop in sales tax revenues for building materials, which signals a slowdown in construction activity. We're also seeing a decline in permit activity from the Pikes Peak Regional Building, as you can see on the graph. But there is even hope that the Federal Reserves may cut rate later this year. The effects of the high interest rates are still very real, and they continue to slow growth and investment right here in our city. And lastly, we're also feeling the ripple effects of the global economic factors, especially around tariffs. Tariffs are driving up the cost of goods and materials, not just for consumers, as people are delaying big purchases, as I've just mentioned, but also for the city of Colorado Springs. It now costs more to build roads, maintain infrastructure, and purchase essential supplies for public safety and city facilities. These are real economic headwinds, but it's important to remember that we're not alone. Cities across the country are facing similar challenges. Denver is facing a $50 million shortfall in 2025, with a projected $200 million deficit the following year. The city of Boulder is dealing with $8 to $10 million gap. The city of Aurora is facing a 25 million deficit. And in Houston, where my family lives, the shortfall is closer to 100 million. Cities of all sizes in red and blue states alike are facing similar challenges. We're not alone in this moment. And while we're not immune to economic headwinds facing cities and states across the country, we're also not powerless. We're taking smart and deliberate steps to weather this storm and to position Colorado Springs for long-term success and stability. So bringing this closer to home, over the last 15 years, our city has experienced steady revenue growth. But since 2023, when I took office, that growth has flattened. What was once a rising steady curve is now holding steady, as you can see from the graph that our general fund revenue, sales tax, and revenue is dating back to 2015. You can see that in 2023, the sales tax revenue fell below our budget projections, which required us to make measured cuts in order to maintain a balanced budget. By law, we are required to maintain a balanced budget, but a balanced budget, it's not just a matter of law. It's also a matter of good stewardship and of public resources. Like families and businesses across America, we can't spend more than we bring in. And unlike the federal government, we can't raise the debt ceiling or just print more money. Instead, our team goes through a rigorous citywide process each year to ensure that we are being responsible stewards of your taxpayer dollars, making every decision with care, transparency, and financial discipline. And we did all of this while minimizing the impact on our ability to deliver essential services. From the beginning of my administration, we have made fiscal stewardship a top priority, partly because it was out of necessity. As I've showed you, since 2023, our revenues were flattened. But we've also done it to just be a good steward of your taxpayer dollars and public resources. We have streamlined operations, improved efficiency, and used data to make smarter decisions. So what does that mean in practice? It means that your city government today is leaner, faster, and more focused than it was 2 years ago when I first took office. Now let's talk specifically about our 2025 budget realities. So we are forecasting about 11.5 million shortfall in the general fund. That's about 2.6% of our total budget. It may not seem like much at first glance, but in municipal budgeting and in a city that's already working with very limited revenues, that is significant. This follows the general fund shortfalls of approximately 9 million in 2023 and 4.5 million in 2024. So what have we done to close that gap? I've asked departments to slow spending. And what does that look like in practice? You see, many departments are holding vacant positions, meaning some roles would not be filled right away. These decisions are being made at departmental levels based on operational needs. We've also reduced discretionary spending, keeping a close eye on utilities and training and replacement of aging equipment and vehicles. Here's the reality. These choices are difficult, but they are necessary. And we are working hard to protect essential services around public safety, infrastructure, and parks, while we're tightening the belt in other areas. So looking ahead to 2026, the signals are clear. We must continue to remain cautious, smart, and strategic with every dollar we spend. We expect revenues to remain flat, and while it's too early to pinpoint the exact shortfall, we know we'll need to continue to identify cost-saving measures. But let me be clear, we're not waiting for a crisis. We're not panicking either. We are planning. The 2026 budget process is already underway. We're working closely with departments to evaluate every program, identify efficiencies, and ensure that we are getting the best value for every dollar. We're also in alignment with City Council, collaborating early setting priorities together, and keeping the process transparent and accountable. And just as importantly, we are listening to our residents. I just wrapped up a 7-stop tour across the city, hearing directly from community members about what matters most to them. And the message was clear. Invest in what we already have, especially around public safety and infrastructure. Our core priorities remain our North Star, whether it's in the area of public safety, our public infrastructure, and our public parks. And we're building a 2026 budget around these priorities, guided by good data, fiscal discipline, and the voices of our residents to ensure that essential services are protected and community values are reflected in every decision we make. As I wrap up, I too want to leave you with some good news, because even in times of challenge, there's always hope. You see, Colorado Springs continues to attract meaningful investment. Our airport is expanding with new routes, including international service. And just recently, Peak Innovation Park finalized a major executive agreement with Colorado Springs Utilities, a move that will bring new development and investment into our region. The lease and reinvestment into the city auditorium is a shining example of public-private partnership in action. And our economic development team and our partners continue to report a strong pipeline of projects on the horizon. Most importantly, unemployment remains low. That's a big deal. Our residents are working, our businesses are hiring, and while the economy may be cooling, it is still very much active and resilient. This city has faced challenges before. If you've lived here long enough, you know that. And we've always emerged stronger. And we will emerge stronger again. And together, we will continue to build a city that is safe, economically prosperous, culturally rich, welcoming, and a vibrant world-class American city on a hill that we call Colorado Springs. Onward and upward. Now I'm going to open it for questions. I have my CFO, Sheree McDaniels, here as well, and my budget manager, Jennifer Vance, here as well, to help answer any questions specific to the budget. Yes?
A lot of talk about the general fund, but a lot of the police and fire funding comes from the public safety sales tax. Will that be cut? Will that be impacted? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, so a big part of the general fund, I think that's what you're alluding to, is around public safety. And you're also talking about the public safety sales tax, which is, we've seen a decline. We are monitoring both. In fact, I just met with my senior executive team today, and the sentiment and the value was clear that we protect public safety at all costs. And I've been proud of my team, who are not team members who the scope of work is not around public safety, but are providing solutions of how we can save more money so that we can actually protect our public safety services.
Are those two organizations going to be seeing any cuts in hiring, or are there going to be more officers and firefighters hired next year to continue that priority?
With our fire department, I believe they're pretty much at full staff, and so next year they will not be hiring. We intend to continue with our concurrent academies next year with our police department, and so that is still the focus. Again, public safety will be protected at all costs. I mean, they will be coming to the table with also being great partners, but we want to minimize the amount of cuts that they have. But none of the cuts will affect the direct services that we provide our residents. Let's give it, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah. Yes.
Yemi, first, thank you for your time. As you know, the federal government is considering Colorado Springs to open 2 ICE detention centers. I first want to know your stance on that, and also, what do you have to say to residents who are opposed to these being opened?
And can you also say, your name and what station you're with?
Absolutely. My name is Samantha Hildebrand, KRDL 13.
Hey, Samantha. I learned about the ICE detention centers probably in the same way you did, through the media. City of Colorado Springs, nor I was aware of it. It's within the federal government's purview, and we have not been engaged in the decision. We have not been involved in any of those decisions. So we're paying attention, and that truly lives within the federal government's purview in terms of what their plans are.
Okay. Well, what do you have to say for people who live here who might be worried about them opening? Do you have anything to ease their mind?
It's hard to ease their mind when I'm not involved in it, but I actually appreciate them exercising the First Amendment rights and speaking up against it. Please know that we are paying attention. It's hard to really speak into what the purpose and the intent of what the feds are doing with this ICE detention center, and I'm not about to make any kind of guesses or promises, but our residents need to know that we are monitoring and we will be paying attention.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any?
Beer and Bowling, Fox 21. Wondering if some of like the hiring freezes and things like that, holding off on replacing equipment, like is that enough to make up the budget shortfall? Will this be something we're feeling into next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are monitoring our current reality. We're also, so it's a three-step process where we're assessing our current reality and decisions that we didn't make today, which we have made some of those decisions. We're monitoring in about, would you say 3 weeks? We will be, I'm looking at my CFO to get, they are religiously looking at that sales tax report. And so in August, we'll be getting June collections from our sales tax. And that would give us an idea of whether or not we need to pull more levers this year. And then, as I said, we started the budget process, and tomorrow we have like a 5-6 hour meeting with our department heads. We call it the budget prioritization process, where all the department heads come together and do the hard work of, okay, we all have needs, but what is the most important needs for our city based off of what we're hearing from our residents, and that collaboration with council. And then that process is to begin to anticipate the 2026 needs and decisions that we need to make. So there are different milestones and different levers that we will pull when needed. And so we're just closely monitoring the current situation.
Just to be completely clear, more of a clarity question, none of these cuts or freezes have impacted, and you don't think they will impact police or fire?
Minimal impact. I mean, every budget cut has impact. It will have impact. But the goal is minimal impact to public safety services, because that's there is no question about what our number one priority is, because we believe a safe city is a great city, and a great city is a safe city. And if you don't feel safe in your community, you have nothing. So expect no. We will protect our personnel. We'll protect our 911 call centers. Our response time are improving. Our call center times are improving. And those are all important things for us. And so I'm proud. I'm proud of the team. There's no question about that public safety is really important. And in fact, one of my department heads was able to come to the table and say, we can't make more cuts so that we protect public safety. So that will always be a top priority of ours.
Will this affect the new fire station that's going up by New Life Church? Is it still going to open, or is that on pause now, or
are you saying that because the fire chief is right in front of you?
No, when she was talking about it, I just curious because I did the groundbreaking out there.
Yeah.
I know
Thank
it
you.
hasn't opened yet. Is it still going to open?
Yeah, I mean, Chief Royal, I think we're at the tail end of that project. I mean, it's ready to be open. We haven't made any decisions yet around that, but I mean, that's certainly one of the things on the table. But I'm also pushing back to say that's something that we need to keep open at all costs if we can. We haven't made any decisions around Fire Station 24, but again, we are monitoring. All of these decisions are going to be based off of the data. We're looking at the current data. We're looking at the future sales tax report, and that will help us make a future decision. But you need to know, at our core, those are not our first levers, and those are not our first moves, including Fire Station 20 2024.
Brennan Kaufman from the Gazette. Yesterday was the city council's vote where they chose to override your veto related to.
I knew that one was coming.
Yes. Well, it's budget related as well. So what is, with that override having taken place, what does that leave your plans for what you would like to see that funding used for in the next budget?
For the RMJ, that's, at the end of the day, that's going to be a collaborative process between the executive branch, legislative branch, and the will of the voters, frankly. That was how it was intended to be. My veto was a veto against the process. That was not the process. My veto was a veto against protecting the spirit of the city charter. The three groups that I mentioned, the collaborative process we've had for years, and especially going into a budget season, it's important that we retain and protect that collaborative process. And the right conversations are happening, not just with the community, but between my office and city council. And I expect we'll be back into a good collaborative process. We have a council mayor's retreat coming up on August 7th, and a lot of it is going to be centered around the budget. I did not have to exercise my veto power in my first 2 years, and understand that ordinances have to be signed by the mayor. And I will not sign anything that I'm not aware of, that I'm blindsided. So it was very calculated and strategic as a way to bring us back to bullseye and get us back on track.
So what was it about kind of this ordinance that made you want to issue your first veto, like you said?
I'm not signing anything I'm not aware of. It's as simple as that. And so every ordinance requires the mayor's signature, and to sign something that you're not aware, I think everybody would probably agree that you don't just put your name on a document. You have to know what it's about. And this is an opportunity, like I said, to get us back on track in a great collaborative relationship.
So you're saying you weren't aware of this before it got to that final?
I was not aware of it.
Let's go to KKTV. Kind of going off of Aaron's question, which departments are you looking to slow that spending in? Wait, we're talking about utilities, training, equipment, positions. Which departments specifically, do you know yet?
Yeah, and I might invite Sheree to give some perspective on this. We have targets across the board. So we've been able to establish how much money we need to save in terms of our projection. And so we've looked at each department, and we're taking a village approach, but we also understand it's different for each department. So at the end of the day, all departments will be coming to the table in terms of slowing the spending, in terms of meeting those target reduction. So it's not just one department over another. But the point I want to make that is really important is that the departments that we hope have the least amount of impact is police and fire. Anything else, Sheree, you want to add? Okay. And I know there's a hunger for more specifics. We haven't had to pull all the levers that, Lord willing, we don't get to. We're all praying for that the June numbers, especially with the U.S. Senior Open, come up a lot better than we anticipated. But we are talking about backup plans to the backup plans to the backup plans. And so right now it's the plan that we have in place is to slow spending. Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done to increase that? Are you guys
Increase revenues?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I wasn't expecting that question. That is one that City Council and I are actually discussing. Every good business. I come from the business world. I mean, it's a two-tier strategy. You talk about how to reduce expenses, but that's not enough. You talk about how to increase revenue, and that is a conversation I wanted to have this morning with my senior executive team. But we ran out of time because we had to come here. But we do have from both branches of government, there are a lot of ideas that are being planted around, okay, how do we increase city revenues? Because that's an important part of the conversation, especially in this time that we know our revenues are flattening and in many ways going down. So more to come on that.
Do you think, residents will feel some of these impacts, some of these cuts, or do you think for like your average, citizen here in Colorado Springs, they won't really notice it?
That's a great question, and I anticipate residents will feel some of it, but again, the key is minimal, because you can't cut revenues without feeling. Here's an example. I think expect roads and repairs and pothole repairs and repavement. All those will still be on target. Perhaps it might be. Maybe people might feel it in terms of how quick they get that responded to. I worry about our Keep It Clean COS efforts. This is why I'm shifting strategy to make this a shared responsibility. I don't believe the best use of your taxpayer money is just keeping our city clean. It's a very important priority of mine and the entire city, but I want to shift it to a shared responsibility where our residents are also participating in our city's cleanliness effort. We have 5 divisions across the city that all contribute to the Keep It Clean initiative, whether it's stormwater or our Work COS program. So as we're assessing what to cut, as you can see, those are probably areas we'll be looking at. Makes more sense to look into that than public safety. And so those are, while no decisions have been made, that's an example of an area that could be impacted. But at the end of the day, I think we can overcome that with a shared responsibility of residents joining the city in our cleanliness effort. Yes.
Developments like Carmen Line, which obviously is not coming anymore, some of these larger developments bringing more people in could have an impact on sales tax and having more people in the city. So
I see what you mean. I mean, yes, a lot of those decisions are, you do economic impact analysis to make sure it benefits the city, and sales tax is one of them. So potentially, as you know, the voters have spoken loud and clear. 82% said no. But where I landed in my remarks with a sign of hope, I think some of those things that I mentioned, for example, peak innovation. I mean, there are a number of projects on the horizon, and as those come online, those things will help with our sales tax revenue. If you have any connections to those businesses and tell them to make that decision today, that would be helpful. But we're very hopeful about the number of businesses that are still interested in Colorado Springs. And so we're also hopeful because where we're at today is different than where we're at in 2008. This is not I don't expect a rebound to be this over the next 10 years. I mean, the signs that the economists are projecting potentially second half of next year into maybe 2027. So I feel like there's hope is near. It's hard to say because that could change at any moment, but we're still seeing signs of economic growth and prosperity. And so we're remaining hopeful that we're not going to be in this season forever, unlike the Great Recession of 2008. Yes.
And I think it was kind of like when you had the graphs up on the screens here, you were kind of mentioning how some of them were flatlining or dipping, but to me almost it looked like maybe a slight pause, but it wasn't like a major fall off or like, a long stretch of time. Like, and even then, some of them did continue to increase, even if it was like a small increase. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
That's a great observation. I'm glad you mentioned that. And that's why the graphs today look a little bit different than the graphs in 2008. I mean, any kind of reduction in spending on loss for us is a big deal because Colorado Springs is, as a libertarian community, we work with a very small bucket of money. I don't think we tell the story enough. To give you some perspective, the mayor of Salt Lake City was here for the Olympic induction ceremony. with the mayor of LA because they're the two future host cities. So I invited them to join us in the celebration as we inducted Gabby Douglas, Allison Felix, and some of these legends. And of course, when you're with other mayors, you're exchanging notes. The mayor of LA asked the mayor of Salt Lake City, "How big is your city?" She said, "About 200,000. And said, "How many people do you have on your team?" She said, "Over 4,000. Do you know how many people we have in city government in Colorado Springs? Or we can afford? 3,000. To give you some perspective. Most cities that are similar in size, whether it's Omaha, Boise, you name it, they have a lot more police officers. The budget allows them to have more police officers, more firefighters. Our budget is a lot smaller. That's why we have all these special tax initiatives. If you've ever wondered why you have TOPS and public safety sales tax and 2C, and it's a creative way to pay for the things that we can't pay for. And so the point I'm trying to get to is $1 million reduction in spending. It's a big deal for us. But we already have been efficient. We've had to double down since I got into office in 2023. That's when our budget started flatlining. And so we've had to rearrange operations. We were doing efficiency before the feds made it cool and hot. But your city government has been in the business of government efficiency for a long time because we know who we are as a community. And we welcome the challenge, and we're leaning in and doing the right thing on behalf of our taxpayers. Yes. We're protecting sworn at all costs. Going out first.
Sorry, I lost audio.
Any media partner that hasn't asked any questions yet? Before I go back to the ones that have.
I guess mine were the last questions, and if I could just ask them again. Fire and police, any cuts coming on those? Or are you gonna keep it status quo at least?
We're protecting sworn. We're protecting our 911 call takers because we know the impact that they have in our community's public safety. The targets we spread across all departments, but there'll be priorities as we spread those across, and we'll be intentional about what we choose to cut and not cut.
And then Parks and Rec took the hit the last time.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah, and I joke that they still have PTSD from that, but we're not. That is not an approach we're taking this time around.
Anything else? Anything that we missed that you wanted to add that we should have?
I'm looking at my CFO and budget manager to see. I'm feeling pretty good. They're the expert, and they're not. That's a affirmation of Mayor. You got this.
Is $11 million fixable? Is that something you can get back to?
11 and a half?
Yeah, or
What do you
11
mean
and a half
fixable?
million. I guess just, it doesn't sound like a major big deal for the city, but it's definitely a hurdle you gotta come over, right?
Like I said, 1 million is a big deal for us because we're already working on a shoestring budget. So 11.5 million is a big deal, but we've had, whether it's a great recession of 08 or just into 2020, I don't know if you guys were paying attention in 2020, but we saw that dip, and we had to make, my predecessor and my incredible team had to make some tough choices. The point I'm making is that we've been here, and we've overcome. We always come out stronger. We're bootstrapping, we're tightened down, we're saying, what is our must-have, our top priority, and so we're assessing, and we're all coming to the table, all the department heads and divisions, and being good team players as we navigate this difficult situation for us in city government.
My guess what he meant by fix is zeroing it out and making sure that we're not in a deficit and we're taking in more money. Is that possible to do with the budget next year? Or is it going to take a few years?
You mean to get us back to, Sheree, do you have any perspective on that? Yes.
People hear 11.5 million and think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. Is that possible to, kind of fight that out, so to say?
Okay. Good morning. My name is Sheree McDaniel. I'm the city's chief financial officer. And that's specific, the $11.5 million revenue shortfall that we're experiencing is specifically why we had those expenditure reduction targets for our departments, so that we can, at the end of the year, not run into a deficit. We have to have a balanced budget every year, and so we will take the steps necessary to have our spending not exceed that revenue. So that's why we're making those cuts specifically, so we can balance the budget this year. Thank you.
Thank you.